All right, and we are rolling. How's everyone doing today? Welcome to my channel. And this is actually a New Year's resolution that I'm doing. I'm actually going to do a little podcast. Welcome to All Music Matters and that. I'm going to be your host, Brian, and I'm actually looking forward to this. This is something I really wanted to try out for a good while. And after taking some notes from last week, I feel ready. And you know what? Let's jump into them. So in my podcast, I'm going to talk about some music news. I got a couple of reviews here for the week. Then I'm also going to do a section called Looking Back. And tonight's Looking Back episode is going to deal with Three Doors Down, one of the bands I mentioned in one of my previous videos that got me into music. I'll discuss a little bit more about that a little bit later. But first, let's start with some music news. All right. So this week would have marked Betty White's 100th birthday. And unfortunately, she passed away December, I think it was 12/31. And I know Betty White mainly from the Golden Girls when she was with B. Arthur, Rue McClellan, and the Steel Getty. And I watched that a good bit, and I think my mom also told me that there was I don't want to say petition, but it was something to get her onto SNL where she did a good couple skits there. And I found out that she did a funny version. It was a metal version of the Golden Girls intro. And after, it was pretty funny too, because it just starts off singing how the traditional intro goes, and then it got into her own metal version, which obviously it wasn't her, but somebody was doing the growling vocals and stuff like that. And I think the biggest thing I took away from that was showing a sense of open-mindedness. Now, I don't know if Betty White was really into metal. Maybe she just knew a couple bit of metals, maybe more of the 80s or pretty much the 60s, 70s, and classic rock metal bands that came out during her time. But I think the biggest thing I was taking away from that was definitely having an open mind. I think when it comes to music, there's all the different kind of genres, and we kind of roll our eyes at them too because of sometimes you get a mix, the rap rocks or some version of country mixed in with something from the rock genres. But definitely having an open mind and then just not simply sticking to one particular genre and then just kind of rolling with it and say like, oh, all other genres just suck. And I'm just going to stick with that. Mine's the best one there is. Now, I will admit, I listen to mostly rock, metal, those kind of genres. At times, I really do like to branch out and kind of experiment and listen to like some of the rap. Me personally, I tend to think rap's kind of better whenever you're at the club and all that, and you're just dancing around, doing all that kind of stuff. So, but at times, I don't really want to critique or be overly critical. I really do applaud any musicians that go out and just do what they do. So, looking at it, it's really a shame about losing Betty White, but given her age and I guess what was going on, I think the best way to do now is just to remember her. So here's the SNL skit she did. Rest in peace, Betty White. We'll miss you. So moving on to the other news. One of the interesting ones I saw on Rolling Stone talked about George Martin talking to his granddaughter about why he signed the Beatles and how things kind of went afterwards. So for those who don't know, I think George Martin was a producer that had signed the Beatles at the time when they were just starting out before they made it big and everything. And at first, it didn't really go well at all. Just kind of short. It kind of gave it like a brief story about what he thought about their first impressions and everything. Back then, he didn't have a big thing of the drummer. It was not Ringo Starr. Ringo Starr came a little bit later, but then that's when things started to get better. I think the thing was he saw potential at the time. Maybe he wasn't fully convinced at the moment, but then as they kept coming back and trying to do everything, he was convinced of their potential, and then after that, he signed them, and the rest is history. So it's kind of funny how when you think about history as well as like bands that could have been, I think there's probably a good endless list of bands who probably could have done a good bit, but then like something happened, whether it was just like personal issues or this and that happened, and then everything just gets thrown out of whack, and then they probably only did like one album or something with demos, and then it just fell apart right there and they all went their separate ways. You're joining other groups or just doing their own solo projects. It's always funny how time works like that. I think that's the biggest thing I want to take away from this, is that he had no idea that he was going to be on the edge of history. And now looking back, I think is like, those were the best years of my life. He did pass away in 2016, so it is another sad one. So a little bit later, rest in peace. But thank you so much, George, for giving us the Beatles. and the glory that they brought with them, too.
There were four of them. And I said, who are they? What are they? And he said, they're a group, we call them the Beatles. And I said, well, that's a silly name for a start. Who would ever want a group with the name Beatles? And he said, well, it isn't the Beatles you think of. It's Beatles with an A in it, like beat. Oh. So I listened to what he said. I said, well, I'll have to hear them, first of all. So he sent them down from Liverpool, which is quite a long way, and I met them in London. And when I listened to what they did, it was okay, but it wasn't brilliant. It was okay, you know. So I thought, well, why should I be interested in this? But the magic bit came when I started to get to know them, because they were terribly good people to know. They were funny, they were very clever, they said all lovely things, and they were the kind of people that you like to be with. And so I thought, well, if I feel this way about them, other people will feel like this way about them. So therefore, they should be very popular. I made records with them.